The opinions expressed in the following program are provided for general information purposes only and should not be construed as advice from CJAD 800 or Bell Media. Listeners should always consult their own real estate agent with questions or concerns. The following is sponsored content.
Welcome to the Real Estate Show with your real estate and mortgaging team, Terry Kilakos and Helen Akrivos on CJAD 800.
Good afternoon, everyone. The time is now 1:05 and you're listening to the Real Estate Show. I'm your host, Terry Kilakos, chartered mortgage broker and president of Northeast Mortgages, as well as founder of Northeast Group of Companies. Joining me as usual, we have my beautiful co-host, Helen Akrivos.
Hello.
How you doing, Eleni?
Excellent.
You doing good?
Working on this flu, but I'm doing great.
Yeah, and you show up here with a flu, and you know how germophobic I am.
I know. It's okay. I'm staying away.
Guys, we took a break for the summer, but now we're back with you every Sunday discussing real estate, mortgages, and everything in between. Today, we're going to be looking at what's happening in the real estate market and how this affects you. Now, don't forget, you can always join the conversation by calling in with your questions at 514-790-0800 or texting in to 514-800. You can also watch us and comment on Facebook Live at facebook.com/Northeast Mortgages or Northeast Realties. And, of course, if you haven't done so already, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is newsonthego.ca. Again, all the stuff that we do here in the station gets broadcasted on our YouTube channel, so you can actually watch it. If you've missed a show, they're all lined up over there. And, Helen and I, we were kind of looking to see what we were going to talk about today during the show, and there's been so much that's gone on throughout the summer. So I think this is going to be a market update show. So we're going to basically look and see, all the crazy things that have gone on, and we'll go from there.
Too many things.
Oh my God! I mean, it's insane. It's insane. We take a couple of months off, and that's it. Like the whole world falls apart.
But you know what? I know you got to talk about rates because everybody wants to know what happened with the rates this summer. Everybody thought they were going to go up. Right?
Well, you know what? Again, for people that have been listening to this show long enough, they, you know where I stand on rates. You know where I stand with, government policies and stuff. I think that the government wasn't very responsible when they, did those series of increases in the rates when they did it. I understand why they did it. There is a recession that's looming. And when there's a recession and you end up having instances where inflation is starting to dip down, you have to lower interest rates so that you can actually stimulate the economy. And if you're starting off at a very low point, well, there's no stimulus there. You're not going to be able to lower it very quickly. Now, what we're seeing is the entire world going in a certain direction, but yet the Bank of Canada is defiant against it, and they're not changing the overnight rate. They're staying the course. They're like, no, we're keeping rates as it is. Personally, I have, my own kind of, and this, if we look at it, I think that it has to do with the fact that, we are approaching an election, and seeing as we are approaching elections, I don't think that the government wants to say what's really happening behind the scenes until after, people have voted and have made their decisions about which direction to take.
Interesting. So it's going to affect it's affected the variable and the fixed rates, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. It's kind of good for buyers.
Well, let's look at, the difference between the two. The government doesn't have much control over the bond market. So seeing as they don't have much control over the bond market, we have seen rates drop when we're talking 5-year fixed rates, 4 years, 10 years, 7 years, all those rates where they're directly impacted by bonds and what the market is dictating, those rates have dropped. What we haven't seen change right now is the bank's prime rate, which impacts variable rate mortgages. And the bank's prime rate is directly impacted by the overnight rate that the Bank of Canada charges. So the Bank of Canada has stayed the course. They haven't raised it. They haven't dropped it. So it's 1.75%. And then the banks are charging on top of that, and then they're giving you a discount or a premium on top of the prime rate to get you to where you need to be. It's, I think that the next announcement that's going to come, I think we are going to see a drop in the rates, but definitely for sure, if the government changes, we'll probably end up seeing some sort of the U.S. Everyone is lowering rates. They're all anticipating this recession, and the problem is that if you wait too long, you just get deeper and deeper into it, and then the deeper you get in, the harder it is to climb out. So if this is political posturing on, the part of the Liberal government, I think that they're playing with people's lives and, finances and whatnot, and I don't like it. But anyways, that's my opinion. Mm-hmm. So talk to me what's going on on the real estate front.
On the real estate front, I mean, there's just been too many headlines to count. Recently, the new home buyers incentive, which we're going to get into next week, as well as this show. Condo sales are off the charts. So condo sales posted a higher sales than single homes for the first time in years. So they're more affordable, lifestyle changes. So condos are just off the chart. Continuing construction in Montreal, we're seeing the skylines change. Yeah. But other than, the residential, which we're going to talk about a little bit more, there's a lot going on behind the scenes in Montreal that's driving the market as well.
Like what?
So we have the office sector that's really growing in Montreal. We have a few, big companies that have moved into Montreal, government incentives that are, giving these companies money to pay for salaries, stuff like that. We also have a great pool of talent here that's, inviting these companies like subsidiaries of Google, Facebook, Samsung has opened up offices here. So the demand for office space in downtown Montreal, also outside of Montreal, has increased significantly. So the vacancy rates for office, industrial. So we're talking, I know we've seen articles about retail. Yeah. Unfortunately, kind of like dwindling. We're seeing, little shops close down, but because there's a huge tech sector coming into Montreal. So industrial space, warehousing for e-commerce, people who are looking for, opening distribution centers, that as well. So the rents are going up in terms of industrial leasing. So there's a lot of sort of like behind the scenes, a lot of growth, basically, just overall.
You think the powers that be listen to the real estate show? Because if you remember, about a year and a half ago, I did a show and we were talking about how the condo markets were booming in Montreal. However, what we were seeing is there was a lack of business that was actually coming in.
Exactly.
And now I'm starting to see that shift. So we're seeing there is more business that's coming to Montreal. There is, again, as long as the governments don't mess things up.
Well, apparently there's incentives. Again, I mean, this is for the everyday people. I mean, we don't own, big companies like Amazon. But for these companies, there's incentives from the government to come in here. And they have. They're setting up shop in places like Beauharnois. Obviously, the downtown core is interesting for offices. But for industrial, just outside of Montreal, it's booming.
Yeah. And, what's funny is I was talking to some clients recently from Huntington. And Huntington, which was, turning out to be more of a ghost town more than anything else. I mean, it was like literally like you would drive through Huntington and it was like crickets, right? And now we're seeing, the cannabis industry is opening up plants over there. We're seeing some movement, and it makes sense because Huntington is right near the borders. So as legalization becomes more and more prevalent, now you're going to end up seeing these small little communities that were becoming ghost towns actually beef up because you're not going to find the same size industrial spaces and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Speaking
so that's
of
very
cannabis,
cool.
That's one of the niche markets. There's a few niche markets, senior housing, which is booming in Quebec. The cannabis, which if you're looking to get into a business, that could be interesting. Yeah,
absolutely. No, I'm very excited, and honestly.
Actually, one more thing before I forget, the purpose-built rentals. Okay. So rental, because of the mortgage rules that have changed, has become so popular now that developers are building purpose-built buildings just for rental. So not buildings to sell condos. So we have the condo market, that's one thing. Buildings just specifically for rental. The population is aging. That's booming. Again, rents are going up in Montreal, right? Vacancy rates are really low. So there's just so much going on all around.
That's very interesting. I want to continue that discussion after the traffic break. But anyways, you guys are listening to CJAD. We're going to take a small detour over to the CJAD Traffic Center with Kira Yeager.
You're listening to The Real Estate Show with your real estate and mortgaging team, Terry Kilakos and Helen Akrivos on CJAD 800.
You're listening to The Real Estate Show, and today we're talking about what is happening in the real estate market and how it affects you. Don't forget, you can always join the conversation by calling in with your questions at 514-790-0800 or texting in to 514-800. And don't forget, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel at newsonthego.ca. And before we kick off, I do want to give a shout out to all our listeners at the Lacole border crossing. Love you guys. Thank you for listening. I know that they have this show that plays
nice.
Every Sunday. So thanks for listening. Okay, so before we went to traffic, we were talking about the rental market.
Yes.
And I want to know, what do you think is actually driving that? Because I have my ideas of what's driving it. What do you think? What have you seen? What's driving that part of the?
Honestly, on the ground, as well as several articles I've been reading, even across Canada, and not just Montreal. It's a question of affordability, and it's really something that we've seen in the last year manifest right now in reality, following the mortgage rules. Following the stress test, which a lot of people didn't know. We didn't know which way it was going to go. And that's why we're also seeing a boom in the condo market. So rental market, we have never seen this before. Vacancy rate, it's at 1.3 on the island of Montreal. It's pretty much zero.
We've seen this once upon a time, and I'm trying to remember when it was. It was at some point, I think 2004, 2005. I remember I would put a sign outside. I kid you not. I had my block. I would put the sign outside, and I didn't have time to actually get down from the ladder. My phone would literally start, ringing.
That's where we're at. We have, our EITs right now, investments. So we have private investors buying multifamily unit. It's the most popular. So the sales of multifamily unit buildings has gone up so high in Montreal. We're surpassing sales in Montreal, over Toronto and Vancouver.
Okay,
just to tell you.
Okay, so now we're talking the rental spaces, right?
Exactly.
So, I have a feeling that one of the things that's actually driving it, yes, there is, investors that are kind of buying the multis, but I'm talking about the condo, and I'm doing air quotes here, that are going up. I have a feeling that what we end up seeing is, I think a lot of people were planning on buying a condo. They didn't qualify for it because of, the new rules and so on and so forth. And then what we end up seeing is we see people having to go and rent, unfortunately. So anyways, okay. We have a text from Brad. What do you think of the new government incentive? Good or bad?
We were just going to talk about that.
Brad.
There's a lot of them, right?
Yeah.
So maybe we want to just run through them quickly. We will be doing a show, by the way, next week and covering all of the incentives in detail, right?
Yes, exactly. So, okay, well, let's take a thanks for the text, Brad. Let me just go real quickly on what happened during the last federal budget and what was kind of announced. Okay, so we saw the first-time homebuyer incentive. We also saw the home, which we're going to be covering next week. Okay, I will give my 2 cents to Brad in a second, but we will be covering that in next week's show. We have the first buyers, the home buyers plan. Sorry, the RAP program,
yep.
Okay. RAP is en français,
ouais.
Okay. Home buyers plan en anglais, okay. It went up from 25,000 to 35,000. So this is not as of September 2nd. So the first-time home buyers incentive is as of September 2nd. We've had clients all the way from the beginning of the summer that have been using $35,000 out of their RSP.
Which is amazing.
Absolutely.
Positive.
I take my hat off to the government for that. That was a great idea because... why not use
prices have gone up, right?
Yeah,
so people
absolutely.
do need more of a down payment, and that's where the challenge is.
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely,
right?
100%. And also divorcing couples can now get access once again to the home buyers plan. So the spouse of someone that has already used the home buyers plan can now access that, whereas before they didn't have access to it. So now, to answer Brad's question, good or bad idea?
What's the short answer?
It depends on your situation.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm going to say. Whether I think it's a good or bad idea, I have preconceived notions about it. I think that when the government gets involved in anything, It's a bad idea when the government gets involved in your finances in any way, shape, or form. But I could see how this is going to help a lot of people.
It could help some people increase their down payment.
Exactly. And by increasing your down payment, ultimately you're reducing the amount of money that you're paying monthly on your mortgage, which is going to end up having, it's going to be good. Next week's show, we're going to be going into this in detail,
yeah,
in real
absolutely.
detail, and from there we're gonna go from there. Okay, so do you want to add anything else about the?
No, I mean, the only thing I can say is that if you were thinking of buying this year, and waiting, and we've seen a lot of people wait, or you did not qualify for some reason, I mean, this could be a chance for you to sort of revisit, or if you were just on the borderline, it's a good opportunity to sort of look at all your options. So they are offering a little bit more, for example, 10% incentive if you're buying new construction. So maybe you didn't consider that. So it could be a good opportunity to come in, go see a mortgage broker, get your pre-qualification done again.
Yeah, and it is one of the things that we actually did. We reached out since the government actually put this in place. We reached out to a lot of our clients that were thinking, a lot of them that were on the cusp. The only thing that I will say is this incentive, you have to remember, just to kind of summarize it very quickly, if you're putting 5% down, the government is going to kick in another 5% if it's a if it's an existing property. So if you're buying a property that exists and you're a first-time home buyer, they'll kick in an extra 5% for you. So your down payment will be the equivalent of 10. If you're buying a new construction, then the government is going to basically kick in 10%. So your down payment is going to go from 5 all the way up to 15%. So that one makes a difference. And when you're looking at why the government is doing that, why is the government giving something more to one than giving to the other? Well, it has to do a lot with taxes, right? When someone is selling a new construction, there is a lot of stimulus that's going into the economy for it. The problem that I have with this is that we've seen this before. We've seen the U.S. government put something like this in place years ago. And unfortunately, it was right after the market crash, and they put the entire weight of the real estate market on first-time home buyers, which is not good. You don't want to necessarily be there. And we have another text that came in from Linda. We'll get to that in a second. Up next, we're going to be continuing our discussion about the incentive and where mortgage rates are going to go, maybe a little bit.
Yep.
See you guys on the flip side.
You're listening to The Real Estate Show with your real estate and mortgaging team, Terry Kilakos and Helen Akrivos on CJAD 800.
Thanks for joining us on The Real Estate Show. Today, we're getting up to speed with the mortgage market, the real estate market, and everything in between and how it affects you. You don't forget, you can always join the conversation by calling in at 514-790-0800 or texting in at 514-800, just like Emily did here. I like Emily's text. First-time home buyers incentive plan sucks when you eventually sell your home. The government will get a percentage of your profit based on the future value of your home. Emily,
Absolutely.
tune in next week, and I think you'll see how I feel about the first-time home buyers.
She is right, though.
She is correct, yeah. And just before we go on, there's another text. And by the way, guys, I'd love to see what you actually think about this program, about the first-time home buyers program, and by all means, I mean, even the real estate show. So you can actually text us in, and I'm curious to see what people think about this first-time home buyers incentive. The next text: does the first-time home buyer incentive plan remain available even if there is a new government in place after the upcoming election? From what I understand, there is only a limited amount of money in the federal budget reserved for this program. Therefore, first come, first served. Would that be correct? You are correct, my friend. Okay, so what happens with the new government remains to be seen. And you are correct. It is first come, first serve, which means there is a limited amount of money. However, we're going to end up, if the government stays in place and, they want to continue this, they're obviously going to funnel more and more money into this over the years. Again, do I agree with it or not? Tune in next week and you'll find out what I think. We have another text. What does it mean when someone says the government will have a second ranking on one's home? Okay, so now let's get into how properties work, right? So when you have a home, you have what's called a first rank mortgage on it. So let's say you own property ABC and there is a first rank mortgage on it from bank XYZ. Okay, they are the first rank creditor, which means that if you sell that property, they get paid first, you get paid second, which means that if you put another mortgage on it, the next mortgage that goes on it goes in second place, which means, let's say the first rank is on 100,000 and the second one is, let's say, at 50, and you end up selling it for 140, for example. Well, there's $10,000 shortfall on the second, not on the first. The first always gets paid. So what the government is planning on doing is they're going to attach themselves as a second-ranked creditor onto your property to basically make sure that they get paid eventually when you sell your home. The problem comes in when you eventually, if you need to refinance, if you need to switch financial institutions in 5 years, the way it's called the scheme of collocation. And the way that the scheme of collocation works is when the first rank creditor falls off, the second rank goes into first place. So which means if you need to refinance, now the government is in first and your new bank would be in second. And no bank wants to be in second place. So that remains to be seen what's going to end up happening with that. I don't think they really ironed out the details unless there's some sort of contract that specifically stipulates that whenever the government, whenever you're up for a refinance or anything like that, the government is willing to kind of step back. Moving on to Linda's question, what is the fastest growing neighborhood in Montreal? Eleni, I'm kicking that off to you.
All right, just to add to the thing you were just talking about, the second rank, just to be clear also, there's no interest on what you're borrowing. And then so that's probably one of the reasons why they make it second, right? They don't add it to your first mortgage?
No.
Is it?
No,
they don't add more? They don't add interest?
No, there is no interest.
That's what I'm
saying.
saying.
Correct. But
so
there is... No, there's...
It's just to let people know that there's no interest on the portion that you borrow, so it's not tagged onto your first mortgage, which you said the first rank. It's a second rank. It's like
it's
separate...
because it's a different lender.
Exactly.
It's a different...
It's a separate lending.
Exactly.
Okay. So fastest growing neighborhoods in Montreal depends on who are you, right? Are you somebody who's looking to invest and get into a neighborhood that hasn't, increased in value yet, or are you or you want to move into one of the hot neighborhoods?
Okay.
So hot neighborhoods like Beaconsfield, almost anything West Island at this point. Point Claire, DDO, as you know.
Yeah,
Terry
absolutely.
lives in DDO, so
I
West
love
Island,
DDO.
Vaudreuil is very hot in the sense that it's very high in demand, and there's 18% less listings on the market, so everybody's going after the same homes. Laval, actually, certain areas of Laval and South Shore are also very high in demand. Now, if you're looking for the next up and coming, you're probably looking at off island, right? So if you're looking at, I don't know, more
you're talking
affordability.
South Shore and stuff like that, or you're talking the other direction?
North Shore and South Shore,
okay.
And just really further out than we would be thinking. So, for example, Montréal Nord, places like, I don't know, Mascouche, Châteauguay is up and coming. So up and coming meaning it's still more affordable. It's not as high in demand. So these are areas that maybe now are not in demand, but maybe in the future.
Right.
So it depends on what is your goal. Are you looking to buy in an area? So when I bought in Lachine years ago, people asked me, why are you buying there? Why do you want to live there?
Sure.
But I said, this is going to be up and coming. What a great neighborhood. Waterfront.
It's so close to Montreal.
It's so close
right?
to Montreal. I'm 5 minutes from the Dorval Airport.
Absolutely.
And lo and behold, we bought, there was no Tim Hortons, nothing in Lachine. Now we have new developments. We have an extra train station. This is all in the time span of 10 years.
There's a Tim Hortons.
There's a Tim Hortons now. Yeah,
Wow.
because before our population was it was too small. Believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So just to say, I bought there.
Interesting.
With the there was no Tim Hortons.
I would think that there's been a Tim Hortons there forever.
No.
Okay.
It just came in literally 3-4 years ago.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
So you're talking specifically in your neighborhood, because I know other Lachine areas there's been Tim Hortons.
No, Lachine has one Tim Hortons. Lachine is a small area. It's from Première Avenue, 55e Avenue. It's like a little town in between, LaSalle and Dorval, which again was up and coming.
Yeah.
So when I bought, it was up and coming. So if you're looking for up and coming, you can't buy in, again, TMR, Beaconsfield, Côte Saint-Luc, NDG, Outremont. These are already established neighborhoods. You're paying top dollar.
Interesting.
Because it's high in high demand. So up and coming, look at different areas. Vaudreuil was up and coming for a while and still is, but prices are going up in Vaudreuil as well. So it really depends. Again, if you're looking also for condos, plexes, there's different areas you want to look at. Villeray has been up and coming, so we're talking Parc X. A lot of people say, oh, why Parc X? Well, there's the Université that's, that's going up there. So you always have to look at what's happening around the neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
What business is coming in, what's developing. If there's condos going up in the area, that's a good sign, right?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, you gotta look at the kind of general movement of the neighborhoods. One of the things that I've actually noticed is, going the other direction. If we're looking towards Vaudreuil and stuff like that, it's been the last couple of years since kind of the train, the REM has been kind of moving in a positive direction. I've seen a lot of clients saying, we want to buy in Vaudreuil. We want to buy out there. We want to buy in Hudson.
Yeah.
The thing that actually, and we should do a whole show on this, talking about flood zones. A lot of people want to buy out in Hudson, but the maps have been changed.
Yeah.
So that's affecting prices. That's affecting certain things, which we can talk about maybe in a couple of shows from now.
Yeah, sounds good.
But that's where I'm seeing a lot of our clients coming from. A lot of them are buying out in Vaudreuil. They're very happy out there. They're very excited that the train is going to actually head on over there.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting.
Pierrefonds also, which was not as popular, now is becoming very popular, still very affordable.
Sure, yeah. Montreal, I've been saying lately, is growing. I love the way Montreal is growing right now. I'm so proud to say that I'm a Montrealer.
Yeah.
Just because of everything that's been going on, and it seems like the government's caring, the people are caring. There's this kind of forward movement. There's investors coming in. It's exciting stuff. I'm very excited about it. Stay tuned for more talk about the real estate market. Now we're going to take a small detour over to the CJAD Traffic Center.
You're listening to The Real Estate Show with your real estate and mortgaging team, Terry Kilakos and Helen Akrivos on CJAD 800.
And the texts are flying in. Guys, don't leave the text for the last half an hour. I mean, it's like we don't get a chance to get to all of them. I've even lost track. You've upset a few people. No, I'm just kidding. Welcome back, guys. We're talking all things real estate and the new government rules. Don't forget, you can always join the conversation by calling in at 514-790-0800 or texting in to 514-800. You can also comment and watch us on Facebook Live.com/Northeast Mortgages or Northeast Realties. And if you haven't done so already, please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is newsonthego.ca. Okay, so let me just go through this. Okay, I really do not understand what Eleni meant. Okay, so I read this before. It's someone that wanted clarification about what you mentioned before the traffic. Yeah. Okay, where she was wondering why, because you mentioned interest,
no interest,
and stuff like
second
that.
rank.
So let me just explain. The home buyer's incentive, which we are going to be talking about next week's show. There's a whole show that we're dedicating to this. Has no interest. It's a non-interest bearing loan that you're receiving from CMHC. However, they become an equity partner with you in the property, which means that if you sell and you had a 5% growth, well, you have to give them 5% based on what they put in. Okay? That's basically it. The reason why they go second rank is because they obviously can't go first because your bank is in first position and second position would be them. Okay. So
makes sense.
Well, makes sense. Okay. I think that
we got it.
All right. Okay. This one's funny, actually. What are your views on selling homes where there has been some past for personal use pot growing? Does this need to be revealed to potential buyers? This texter didn't put their name. We're just going to call them Chong. Okay, for our purposes here, or we could call him Cheech, but we'll call him Chong for the purposes of this text. So Chong is asking this question.
Yeah.
Does it need to be revealed? Eleni, what are your thoughts?
Well, you have a seller's declaration that you have to fill out when you're selling a home. One of the questions is, has there been any cannabis growth in the property, whether it's for personal or for production or whatever the use is? You do have to declare it. And then, you may be asked to do subsequent air quality tests if you haven't done so already. You declare it, you put it on the, the form so that people know.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we have another, by the way, I just want to add to that one thing. You have to remember when we're talking about personal growth cannabis, okay, if you have one plant, it's one thing. If you have a plantation, it's something completely different, okay, in your house. It's just like any other plant, right? I mean, if you were to decide that you were going to grow a whole bunch of, I don't know, petunias, and you were going to have like a whole ecosystem growing in there, right? So you end up having fans and lights and this and that and all these things. And obviously the air quality and everything is going to go, it's going to go down.
From a realtor's perspective,
for sure.
I'm going to disagree, because whether it's one plant or 10 plants, my client wants to know
100%.
if there's been even smoked,
100%. Right?
So that's the
Well,
difference.
smoked.
We want to know everything. My clients want to know everything before they buy a house.
Okay. All right. This is a mortgage-related question. I want to get a HELOC. Broker is saying I can refi and get a HELOC at same time with MCAP after fees and penalties saves me about $2,000. Any downside to this? I have 2 years left with First National. Also, hi Eleni, Stefan, and Victoria in Point Claire.
Oh, hi, guys.
So both MCAP and First National are very good lenders. Okay, the thing that you need to ask your broker is you got to look at the products that are coming from MCAP. Are they restricted versus the First National? First National's products tend to be a lot more easygoing. The penalties tend to be a lot less, whereas MCAP sometimes might charge a little bit more heftier penalties, okay? But if your broker has done their due diligence and they've done things properly, then go for it. MCAP is a great lender. Just like I said, First National is a great lender. Actually, as a matter of fact, I'm wearing an MCAP hat
you go.
now. At the risk of sounding like I'm plugging MCAP here, I'm really not. But just so you know, they're just as good as First National. The thing that you have to be aware of, and I've always said, when you go towards the brick and mortar banks, when you're going from a virtual to a brick and mortar, that's where you start to get really heavier restrictions. Not only that, you end up seeing stuff that penalties are much higher when you're going with the brick and mortar route versus the First National routes, so on and so forth. We have another text that came in from Tom. No, is it Tom? We'll say this guy's Cheech. I don't know. Okay. Families think Hudson is great, but as your kids age out, you notice it's filled with nothing to do. Tons of drugs, tons of alcohol. So, yeah, no. Okay, so let's talk about that.
Did he really write that, or
he
you
really,
added
no,
that?
No, no. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about communities where there's nothing to do. Have we seen a change in that when we're talking Hudson, we're talking about all the other areas?
I think we are seeing a flip right now, like in
Tim
demographics.
Hortons are opening up.
Exactly.
Okay,
So no, but we're seeing a demographic like a sort of a swing.
Sure.
Okay, so we're seeing more millennials that want condominiums, and they want a lifestyle. They want things to do. They don't want to have to take a car. They want to have everything around, right? Yeah. And that's why people love the downtown core. So Hudson, like he said, is great if you're going to have kids. There's a lot of green space, a little yacht club. It's a different type of community. But then I guess when your kids get older, they need a car, and then they're going to... Is there a Tim Hortons in Hudson?
Nah, there's
a little area in Hudson that has
Hudson,
stuff. I mean,
Hudson is a nice area, and I do agree that what happens is, teenagers tend to become a little bit more restless when you're going out there. But Montreal is growing, and like I said, the train is going in. There's all these new things that are coming in place, and I don't think that having less to do will automatically mean that your kids are going to turn to drugs. That doesn't happen. There's a lot of education that has to come from the household. And, I know a lot of very successful people that grew up in very small towns. And yes, they ended up leaving those small towns when they got into their early 20s to move into the big city. I do my air quotes again.
Yeah, well, actually, we have a client in common that I believe he lives in Hudson and has a business out there. And he bought a condo for his daughters in the city last year with me. Absolutely. And bought a second one this year because they're going to Concordia. And you know what? They go home, quote unquote, for the weekend to Hudson, do their laundry, eat the family cooked food, and then they kind of come back in. And the condo was an investment for him as well, / his daughters live there. So
Yeah. Again, family education is huge as far as I'm concerned. You know, I have family that grew up in the Catskills, and my niece and nephew are amazing. Okay, they, you know, just amazing kids. Not into drugs, not into anything like that, and it's a tiny, tiny little
and you'll
town.
find that everywhere.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Eleni, we're out of real estate.
We are.
If people want to get a hold of you, how do they do it?
They can call the office line, which is 514-716-6188. You can find us, like you said, on Facebook, on both of our pages. Northeast Realties has a page, Northeast Mortgages.
Absolutely. And if you want to call the mortgage side, you can call us at 514-680-4674. Guys, till next week, have a blessed week. Love you all.